Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast. This week we have Negro League stats, Toronto City Connects, and writer Dan Schlossberg right now.
9 Plus Us presents the Baseball Together podcast with your hosts Blackjack Brad and Kansas City Little Big Briggy Blue Eyes. And now, Baseball Together.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast, baseball family. My name is Brad, and I'm going to be flying this ship, captaining this ship solo this week. Brig is out. He's got some shul stuff he's got to attend to. So I'm here by myself, and I have got several things to get into. But the first thing I want to talk about is I want to remind you that we have a merch store. Once again, it's hosted through Millions. You can hit the link in the description. It'll take you straight there. We have a couple of t-shirts, sweatshirts, and some stickers. We will be dropping more stuff periodically. If you're watching on desktop or TV, you can scan that QR code up there and it'll take you straight there. If not, just hit the link in the description and you can go shop for some of our stuff. So there we go. Let's get into the first story that's hit really hard, actually, initially. It was the fact that MLB has integrated Negro League stats into its record books, or recognizing them as Major League stats. And this has been met with polarizing opinions, right, for various reasons. I will say, on the one hand, I understand that it's like, initially, my thought was it's not Major League Baseball. It wasn't, right? Like, Ichiro's hits in Japan don't count towards his MLB total. I know some people have been counting them for career totals, but they don't count for Major League hits. Pete Rose still is the Major League leader in hits. So now we have Josh Gibson, this catcher from the 40s, who comes in and is now the all-time leader in single-season batting average at 466. All-time batting average at 372, slugging percentage at 718, and OPS at 1.177. Okay? But I think it's cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Now, I've done a lot of thinking about this. I wanted to be very careful with this. So this is the thing. Of course, it's Major League Baseball. This was top-level Major League Baseball for black players who weren't allowed to play in Major League Baseball. Keep in mind, the American League and the National League were not always together as the same league. It was the American Association, the National League. They were kind of their separate things for a while, and then they brought them together. Okay? And what about the competition? I've seen a lot of stuff on social media. What about the competition? He wasn't playing against big leaguers. Well, really, was anybody else at that time playing against all big leaguers? Because, to be honest, there were guys playing Major League Baseball at the time who would have had their spot taken by a player in the Negro Leagues. So maybe it's fair to say that at least a little bit, right, Major League Baseball was somewhat watered down at the time, because you didn't have your Hank Aaron's, your Jackie Robinsons, your Larry Doby's, and your Josh Gibsons playing. How many other guys? Satchel Paige, right? You can go, the list goes on of guys who weren't playing, and there was somebody else playing in their spot as a replacement level player, right? So you think about that, it's like, well, the competition maybe wasn't there for the Negro Leagues, but maybe it wasn't there for Major League Baseball either, right? So that's something that I've really thought a lot about and thought really hard about. Babe Ruth himself, in fact, wanted to integrate Major League Baseball because not only was it the right thing to do, but also because he knew it would make Major League Baseball better. He knew about the talent that was playing in the Negro Leagues because he had played with them. He would go in the offseason, he would play games with them. He would sit with these black players in their dugouts and talk with them. He would sit with the fans who weren't allowed to sit with the white fans. Babe Ruth got it. And he really wanted to integrate the league. And, and the Josh Gibson thing, this was the only opportunity he had, was to play in the Negro Leagues. Because he passed away in January of 1947 at the age of 35, before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier with the Brooklyn Dodgers in April of 1947. So Josh Gibson literally never got a chance. And to put up those kind of numbers as a catcher, I think he deserves the respect that he has certainly earned over the course of a 14-year career in the Negro Leagues. And if you look at his baseball reference page, and yes, he was limited. He never played more than 70 games in a season. There were several he never played 50, right? Because the season was limited. But if you look at his 162 game average, 373 average, 458 on base percentage, 718 slugging. That adds up to a 1.176 OPS. Okay. He was no slouch. Playing against some really great pitchers and some great players. I think that Josh Gibson deserves everyone's respect for the fact that he was able to put together the career he did given his circumstances. And he would have raked in Major League Baseball. He'd have been a perennial all-star. So let's give him the respect that he deserves. Truly. Okay, let's go a little bit lighter. Let's move on to, we had City Connects drop last week. It was odd. Usually it's Monday, so we would have talked about it on the show on Monday, but instead it was on Thursday. We didn't have a Thursday Night Live because Brig was doing school and I was at my son's soccer game, so we just decided to skip it and forgot to put stuff on social for you guys. But nonetheless, we were not there. We're here to talk about the Toronto City Connect. Now, they're calling this night mode. At first, I wasn't sold. But the more I look into this, the more I see it, I am sold. Okay? And I'll get more to that in a little bit. But let's look at this for just a minute. So the whole thing is night mode. Like I said, when the sun goes down, the city comes alive, is what the Blue Jays tweeted with this. And so if you look at what they have going on here, first, let's talk about this split T on the hat. So it's on the cap, and it's also on the sleeve. You can see it right here on the sleeve, just barely below the Blue Jay there. It comes from Toronto City flag and it represents City Hall Towers. Then we have Toronto across the chest. I didn't put these in proper order when I was putting this slideshow together. My bad. But this is actually pretty cool. So the Toronto across the chest is inspired by Toronto City Hall, like that font. It says Toronto outside of City Hall. It looks like that. But you can see the skyline there, and it's supposed to be the city reflected onto Lake Ontario. Now look at that across the chest. Would you look at that? And then I added this shot of the skyline at night. They pretty much nailed it, and it looks really cool. I like that a lot. I think it's so great. One thing I don't have a picture of is inside there, the collar. It says diversity our strength. And that's on the city's coat of arms. I think that's really cool. Here you can see on the back, you can see the numbers. Kind of. You don't get a good. I wish I'd been able to get a better shot there, but you can't really see the red and the white and the blue against the black jersey there. But they have black pants with piping. I believe it was red and white piping down the sides. We're gonna look at it here in just a minute. You can see the Blue Jay there with like a red cuff. Now, I want to look at on the field stuff because I feel like that's usually where you can tell how things end up looking. I mean, obviously, so it's blue and red with the numbers on the back. It's Jose Barrios pitching there. It's funny though, because in that shot right there, it looks like there's 3 umpires because the black. There's Vogie driving one to deep center. I think it looks great on the field. It's hard to see the Toronto skyline. Bo Bichette, of course, is going to look good. You can put a paper bag on that guy. He'd look good in it. But it's hard to see the skyline on the black, on the jersey, on the field. But at the same time, though, like, the skyline doesn't exactly light up like a Christmas tree. When this picture, you can't see it because there's still a little bit of twilight in the background there, right? But I looked at a lot of pictures. This is the one that I felt like represented the skyline the best across the jersey, what they were going for there. And there were others where it just kind of the skyline is not super prominent at night when it's completely black in the background. And so it's kind of fitting that it's like you get closer up to it and it looks better. But the other realization I had, and we talked about this before, that these these jerseys, they're not necessarily for the everyday fan. They're not necessarily for the hardcore fans. They're for the casual fans and the non-fans who want something that can, maybe they're a casual sports fan or maybe they're just into fashion. They want something that represents the city. So it's meant to appeal more up close on the street. It's why they have all the tiny little nods on the jock tag, on the back of the collar, and things like that. That wearing them on the field is simply modeling them and giving the hardcore fans like Brig and I, right, the big time fans like us, giving us another reason to buy it. Like, oh man, I like the way that looks in the field, or I like the way that looks for my team, so I'm going to buy it. I feel like they've done a really good job trying to appeal to the casual and non-fan with this. Like I said, it looks really good close up, and they're definitely fashionable. I wasn't a big fan of the Lou. We had somebody on YouTube call us out like, you don't like it, but we do. We don't care. Like, that's fine. You can absolutely like it. You can love this Toronto one. This one I like more than I thought I would have given my first impressions. I'll say that, and I'll leave it at that. Okay? Because I don't want to take too long. I want to get moving on with other stuff that I got to talk about here. Blake Snell. Blake Snell wishes he had signed sooner. I think we saw that one coming. So he has really struggled this year. He has not been very good so far. He's pitched 23 and 2/3 innings over 6 starts. Has a 9.51 ERA and a 1.944 WHIP. Now this is not good, and he's out with an injury again. But this is something he said, and I thought this was really interesting. And I think that anybody coming into free agency in this next offseason needs to heed his words here, because I think he has some really good points. He said, big league spring training, you need it. And then he continued, I thought I did everything I could to be ready. You have to go to spring training. For me, I hope teams see that. It's not easy. I didn't face a big league hitter until I pitched my first game in the big leagues this year, and it's tough. You have nothing to go off of. You're kind of like, let's see what we got. I faced 18-year-olds. It's all excuses, but it's the truth. It's really interesting coming from Blake Snell after having turned down $150 million over 6 years from the Yankees in January, and now he's on a 2-year deal. But really the problem here is it feels like Scott Boras is the problem, right? Because he obviously didn't encourage Snell to take that money from the Yankees, right? Like, you feel like he's the shoulder devil, like, no, you can get more, right? That just letting the greed take over and kind of suspending reality there. Because let's be honest, Scott Boras doesn't care once his guys get a long-term deal. He does not care. I wonder how much he even talks to Garrett Cole these days. And after Juan Soto gets a deal, how much is he ever going to talk to Juan Soto again? Right? Because he's got his money from those guys. And then what? Right? Bryce Harper says he wants to sign an extension on top of his forever long deal as a Philly. It's like, dude, you are already going to retire a Philly. And if you want to continue playing well into your 40s, you might have to have somebody else, because Scott Boras probably won't remember even who you are by the time that comes around again. So he just feels really out of touch with what his players really need. And like I said, of course, he doesn't care once they get paid, because he gets paid, and those are such long-term deals, it doesn't matter anymore. But Snell is going to be a free agent, could potentially be a free agent again after this season. Probably won't be. He's got a player option for $30 million. I'm sure he's going to take it and play one more year with the Giants before hitting free agency after next year. And then Boras is going to have to go through it all again, unless Snell decides to move on and find somebody who actually has his best interest in mind for him, because I don't think that Boras does. And it feels a lot like these players are starting to see this, and hopefully they move on and find somebody who can really represent them to the best of their needs. Tommy Pham is ready to throw down at any given moment, apparently. So first things first, I just want to mention this before I go into this next story too far, because Tommy Pham looks like a small dude, right? Like he looks like a short, stocky dude. He is over 6 feet tall. I looked it up today. He is 6'1". He's about 225. And the reason he doesn't look taller is because, like I said, he's stocky. He's not long like some guys that are 6-footers. That he is built. And so if I'm the Brewers, I don't want any of that smoke coming from Tommy Pham. So this is what happened. If you didn't see it, Corey Julks for the White Sox, he flew out to left field in the 8th inning. Tommy Pham was on third base. He tagged up, went home. Hey, let's play it so you can see it. So there's Julks. Fly ball to left field. It's not super deep. In fact, left fielder has to come in. That's Christian Yelich. Has to come in to make that catch. And then Pham is out by a good 10 feet. But then right here, William Contreras, the catcher for the Brewers, is kind of waving at him as he walks back, and Pham wasn't having any of it. Bench is cleared. I don't think there was actually any punches or anything thrown because there wasn't any word on that. But it's just it's so funny because what Tommy Pham said after the game was he said that's why he fights during the offseason, just because then he's ready to come in, he's ready to fight whenever he needs to. And like I said, I don't want any of that. If he's been training to fight, first off, you don't want that, and second, the dude is built, so you don't want any of that there either. But also in that same breath, Tommy Pham also threw his third base coach Eddie Rodriguez under the bus, saying he shouldn't have sent him. He was doing the right thing by listening to his coach. That's what you do. And I guess that's really why you do just what your coach tells you, because if it doesn't work out like that, then you can throw him under the bus. Say, hey, I wasn't me. He told me to go. I wasn't going to go, but he told me to. He told me I needed to. So that was kind of a funny thing that happened this weekend. That was Sunday afternoon. And I love that story so much. Let's talk about Aaron Judge. I know Briggs not here, but we're still going to talk some Yankees here. Aaron Judge had an incredible May. He started the season kind of slow. It looked like maybe he was going to have a down season. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe it's just like a typical slow start for a slugger. Because in April, he slashed 207, 340, 414. He had 6 homers, 18 ribbies, 23 walks, and 38 strikeouts. Okay? But in May, things really picked up for him, and things picked up for the Yankees as well, because I feel like the Yankees are a team that they go as Aaron Judge goes. The rest of the team can be struggling, but if Aaron Judge is playing well, this team will continue to play well. There's several teams across Major League Baseball that are like that. I know the Mariners are one with Julio Rodriguez. The Mariners go as Julio goes, as they say. So in May, Judge put together, just crazy numbers. He slashed 361, 469, 918 with 14 homers, 27 RBIs. His walks were down 1. He only walked 22 times in the month of May. But his strikeouts were down considerably. He struck out just 29 times compared to 38 times in April. So Aaron Judge is putting together another MVP season. And he's got Juan Soto there with him putting together an MVP season. The Yankees look unbeatable right now. They're going into Monday. They're 42-19. That's the best record in baseball. I don't know that they'll be able to hold this pace. It kind of feels like it, right? Like this is just a typical Judge. Like I remember when he hit, 62, 63 homers a couple years ago. His dad was like, you should be hitting 200 homers a year. It's like, that's the way it feels. I'm surprised Judge doesn't hit a home run anytime he makes solid contact with the ball, because it should just go for miles, because the dude is enormous. It's like a giant hitting a baseball. But you got Juan Soto there with him. This team's tough to beat, and they're pitching too. Their pitching is legit. So, all right, a couple more things here. Brig is gone, so we're going to talk Mariners. Okay, I don't know if he'd let me put this story on here if he was here, but I'm just going to go through this real quick because it's really interesting to me as a Mariners fan, despite wearing a Reds hat tonight. So the Mariners fired their bench coach / offensive coordinator, Brant Brown. Now, a lot of people are like, offensive coordinator, what? Are they going to fire the defensive line coach next? It's like, okay, so this is an interesting thing the Mariners did this year, was that they wanted to bring in somebody who could strategize more with the offensive philosophy going into games, right? And this is the way I pictured it. It was going to be more situational bunting, hit and run, things like that, right? Maybe a little bit more directional hitting. And maybe that was part of the plan, was a little more directional hitting. Like, let's hit against the shift a little bit more. If guys are, and, such that the shift is now, the guys still play right behind second base pretty much. So there's still the shift, right? Despite the rules. But, trying with some more directional hitting and things like that. And And I thought we were going to see more bunting and maybe a little bit more hit and run, even though I know Scott Service hates the hit and run because you're kind of wasting a swing potentially. But it didn't work out that way. It was just a whole lot more swing and miss. It was so weird, such a weird thing. And then they going into the weekend series against the Angels, they fire him on Friday during the day, and then immediately things turned around. And I know it's the Angels, but still it doesn't matter. It hasn't mattered with this Mariners team. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Nats a week ago because they couldn't hit the ball, right? So I pulled some numbers and I wanted to look at this real quick. So a big sore spot was strikeouts. They made a specific point coming into the season to try to cut down on strikeouts, cut down on swing and miss coming into the season. That's why they got rid of Eugenio Suarez. They got rid of Jared Kelenic, right? They got rid of Teoscar Hernandez, some guys who strike out a ton. I think they were top 5 strikeouts last year. But anyway, coming into Friday's game, the Mariners were averaging 10.2 strikeouts per game. That's before the firing. This weekend, I know it's just 3 games, small sample size, but that was cut down to 6 strikeouts per game. Okay? Reed Detmers is not a bad pitcher, and he wasn't able to strike him out. He had command issues, but I feel like the Mariners before Friday would have been swinging at a lot and missing a lot of those wild pitches of his. So far, cutting down on strikeouts, it's working, right? Let's look at run production because that's a big thing too. Jeff Passan says all the time, man, if this team could just figure out how to score some runs, they would be really dangerous. And they would because the starting pitching is lights out. The pitching is so good that if the Mariners coming into Friday were averaging 3.64 runs per game. If they're averaging 4 or even 5 runs a game, they'd be running away with the West. But they're averaging less than 4 runs per game. In 3 games, again, small sample size against the Angels, I understand. 6.33 runs per game during that 3-game sweep. The starting pitching didn't give up any runs, so that helps. But they were putting runs on the board. They almost doubled their run production, their average run production on the year in those 3 games. So I feel like things are headed in the right direction for my Mariners. One thing Mitch Haniger said, he brought this up because he was the guy they talked to, the player they talked to after the firing. One of the things he said was, it's tough because it was kind of almost like he has him overthinking. He has a lot of things in guys' heads that they don't think about normally when they're up at the plate. If you've ever seen Bull Durham, Crash Davis steps out of the box. He's like, get her out of your head. Get her out of your head. He steps out of the box to clear his head. And it's a real thing that if you're thinking too much mechanically, too much about directional hitting, if that's not what you typically do, if you're a pull hitter, you're like, I pull everything, right? And I understand you shouldn't pull. No hitter should pull everything, but there are some guys who do. Just I can't hit it the opposite direction. Then you're up there gotta get my hands through, gotta keep my hands up, barrel back, and I want to punch that ball to right field as a right-handed batter, right? That's a lot going on in your brain, and you need to be relaxed when you're up to the plate. Hitting is hard enough as it is, and then overthinking it is going to make it even harder. So I think the Mariners are headed in the right direction. I think they're trying to outsmart everybody else and outsmart themselves by bringing in an offensive coordinator. Jerry DiPoto said this, the Mariners president of baseball operations said this is something they talked about since he got there. They've been wanting to do an offensive coordinator. I think the experiment failed. I think we saw that the experiment failed. It took 2 months. Now it's gone, and I don't think it's something they're going to revisit again because it didn't go well. Okay, last thing we have here. MLB has added a skills competition to all-star events. Ooh, this is what we've been waiting for. I'm so excited. The only problem is they're calling it the Futures Skills Showcase. It's going to be on July 13th, that's Saturday, before the All-Star Game at Globe Life Field, which is where the All-Star Game will be hosted this year. So this is how it works. The event will be 3 rounds. Round 1 is called Hit It Here. Hitters aim at infield and outfield targets and try to hit the targets. Round 2, Call Your Shot. Very similar, but they have to hit to different areas of the field. Instead of targets, they're hitting different areas. And then round 3 is Swing for the Fences. Very similar to the second round, in fact, but they're going to be showcasing their power. They're going to be trying to hit home runs to all areas of the field. So I think that's cool. Guys like when this gets to the big league level, because it has to, like next year, put this in the big league level. Juan Soto would absolutely dominate this 100%. This would be his event every single year, because I don't feel like anybody has as much opposite field power as that dude does. But like I said, this is something we've been waiting for. This is akin to the 3-point competition, the slam dunk competition, and all the skills stuff they do now at the Pro Bowl instead of actually playing a game, which is way better. I thought it was more fun watching that with my son than it was sitting watching a game where guys don't care or don't really try to tackle each other. So I think this will be a lot of fun to watch. I will be tuning in for sure. Like I said, this should have just gone straight to Major League Baseball, but they're super conservative up there at the top, and they don't want to take any risks with anything. So, of course, they're going to send it to the minor leaguers first. But, again, I will be tuning in because it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, the All-Star Game will be played in Arlington at Globe Life Field on Tuesday, July the 16th. That is the Tuesday after this skills competition. Okay. Last thing I have for you. Today in baseball history, June 4th, 1972, there's an MLB record, 8 shutouts in one day. This includes the A's shutting out the Orioles in both games of a doubleheader. Speaking of doubleheaders, there were 4 that day, and only 1 ended in a split. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we have a previously recorded interview with longtime Forbes baseball writer Dan Schlossberg. We're going to talk about his latest book, Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. Be right back. Welcome, baseball family. Today we have another one of our special interviews. We're very excited about this. This is a man who I have known through the interwebs for a while now. His name is Dan Schlossberg. He is author of his latest book is Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. We have our copies here. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to dive into it too much because I haven't had it that long, but I'm very into it. Very into it, Dan. I'm excited to get deeper into it.
Good to hear.
So Dan Schlossberg has had a 50-year career as a journalist covering baseball and travel, currently a Forbes national baseball writer. He has authored 40 baseball books. We have a lot more to get into with him. And he is a fellow member of the IBWAA as well. Okay, Dan, we're going to get you caught in a rundown. Are you ready for some rapid-fire questions?
Always ready.
All right, let's get it started. First question is, what is your quest?
My quest is to turn back the clock in baseball. They're always talking about that with the old uniforms. Turn back the clock to when you have 4 8-team leagues and the winners go directly to the World Series. And with expansion, you could do that.
Yep. Yes. Ha. That was my favorite answer I've ever heard. That's what I want as well.
Good.
That's exactly right. Okay, my question is, what is your favorite color?
Red.
Like Braves red?
Braves red, which Hank Aaron did not like, which is why his uniform was blue when he broke the record.
No way.
They changed the uniform to blue coloring for him.
Wow.
Why didn't he like red?
Just a personal preference. It's like not liking spinach, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like yellow, so I get it.
Yeah. So sorry, Brad.
That's all right.
When somebody walks into the room and says yellow again, you don't like that?
Well, I've said that I've gotten through this before. It's a particular shade of yellow because it has to do with pineapple flavored fruit roll-ups from when I was a kid.
I thought it had to do with the bears on Bertolt's chest there.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah. It's my fault.
It is about that shade of yellow, though, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, great.
All
that
right.
ruins one of my gifts for you.
It's fine, Greg. It's fine. Okay. If the Braves were a beverage, what would they be?
They'd be ginger ale because they're unpredictable. Lots of carbonation, lots of changes, but lots of staying the same too. And they do calm an upset stomach.
Not a lot of teams do that. Not a lot of teams will calm an upset stomach. Usually they cause one. As a Mariners fan, they're often causing them.
Oh, I get it. They haven't won a pennant yet.
No. Someday.
It's a problem.
It is.
All right. If baseball were an ice cream flavor, Dan, what would it be?
Oh, definitely chocolate. It's my favorite flavor and my favorite sport.
Well, there you have it.
I love it. I think that's the first time we've gotten chocolate. Usually it's vanilla. Nothing wrong with vanilla, but it's a classic. But chocolate is Outstanding. That's fantastic.
Vanilla's too bland. There's no taste.
Brad likes vanilla.
I love
Probably
it.
a Willie Mays fan said that.
Okay, this is a kind of a controversial question, but I like to ask it. Is Babe Ruth overly romanticized?
No, he's not. He's probably the number one player of all time. He was a pitcher and a batter, just like Ohtani is, or was before his injury. And he's probably the number one player of all time, with Hank Aaron a very close second.
Okay.
Take that, Brad.
I will take that. I will take that.
We fight about this all the time, Dan, which this is one of our favorite things to argue about.
It really is. Yeah, so much.
Well, Babe Ruth and romance usually don't wind up in the same sentence.
That's true. Yeah, you're
That's a
right.
great-
Not romance. Rick, do you want to finish off with one more?
Yeah. What is one unpopular opinion about baseball that you have?
That Rob Manfred's Ghost Runner should be retracted. It's not used in the playoffs because it stinks. It's a lousy rule. It's the worst rule in the history of baseball, and Rob Manfred should leave before 2029.
Boom.
My man.
That's not unpopular here.
No,
Dan. Those are-
Well, I call it the Manfred Man after the British group.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's what we call it too.
That's what we refer to it as too. Yeah, it's a little league rule. It doesn't belong in
Yeah.
big league baseball.
It makes Major League Baseball look like a Sunday beer league.
Yeah,
Right.
does.
Exactly.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. That's exactly
I
right.
absolutely agree with you. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get into Dan's latest book.
All right, baseball family, welcome back. Again, we have Dan Schlossberg with us, and Dan writes about baseball professionally, which is the coolest job in the history of jobs, Dan.
The
So
dream.
we're really glad you're here because you're kind of living the dream, you know? So before we get into his newest book, you've dedicated 50 years of writing professionally about sports. You're currently writing for Forbes, which we brought up earlier, but I wanted to ask, what, in your opinion, is it about sports that captivates you most, and why, of all the things to write about, did you choose sports?
Well, it's just baseball. I have no interest in any other sport at all. However, I'm going to quote Joaquin Andujar, who's asked to describe baseball in one word. And he said, "You never know." That's what I love about baseball. You never know. You can take any game, any day, any situation. Something will happen in that game that has never happened before in baseball history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so
100%.
odd like that. It is. So you never know. I found myself over the last couple of years getting an inkling that something is going to happen. You're sitting there watching a guy. You're like, in this moment, this is going to happen. Do you ever get that, despite the unpredictability of baseball? Do you ever get that watching a guy? You're like, he's homering during this at bat. I can feel it in my gut. Do you ever get that?
I do, especially when a pitcher is pitching who just recently gave up a home run to the same guy. And I go back to October 3rd, 1951, because Ralph Branca had already given up a home run to Bobby Thompson before the shot heard around the world in that playoff in game number one. Bobby Thompson homered off Ralph Branca. Well, so why did you put Branca in again in that situation? Bad judgment.
We were sitting at the World Baseball Classic, and we watched the Ohtani Mike Trout showdown. And I turned to Brad and I said, he's going to choke. Trout's going to choke. It's not going to happen for him right this moment. This is the perfect, most romantic moment that it could ever be. And Mike Trout needs this, and he's not going to pull through. And then that's what happened. And it's one of those, like, so how do we all reconcile this unpredictability? But then there's these moments.
Well, talk about moments. Francisco Cabrera, Game 7, 1992 NLCS. I was covering for UPI. The Braves had to score 2 or more runs. If they scored more than 2 runs, they win the pennant. If they don't score to tie, Pittsburgh wins the pennant. Francisco Cabrera comes up, 2 outs, 2 men on base, gets the pennant-winning hit because Barry Bonds can't throw, and Sid Bream could hardly run. And he was wearing a lot of yellow, by the way, with the Pirates. But anyway, Sid Bream lumbers home, slides under Mike Lavalier's tag because Mike Lavalier is only 5'8". He couldn't reach across the plate to tag Sid Bream. Barry Bonds couldn't throw because he wasn't playing shallow enough. So there was a problem.
That's fantastic. I love that you can just draw on these at any given moment. I hope to be there someday where it's like, yeah, in like 2004, right?
Yeah.
Well, to me, that was the most exciting game I've ever seen live. That was
Yeah.
incredible. Doug Drabeck was cruising with a 2-0 shutout going to the bottom of the 9th inning. And then Jose Lean makes the only error of the season, and that set up everything.
Wow.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy how the dominoes fall like that. I love it.
Just like Bob Stanley in '86, the Bill Buckner game. He made the only wild pitch of the season in that game.
Yep.
It's so crazy. It's so weird.
Well, and didn't Buckner go into that moment saying, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this," and that's what he did.
And by the way, did you guys know that Buckner never took the team bus back to the hotel after the game?
I'm not surprised, but no.
You saw the bus and you saw the bus and went for it, but it went between his legs.
Oh no!
Oh man!
Yes.
Oh my goodness! So good. That's
I'm saving that one.
Yeah, we're gonna hold on to that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just the first 3 times.
So, shifting gears a little bit here, Dan. Was there a story or two in that didn't make it into the book that were really close?
Well, stories that didn't make it in.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting because I think I included everything.
Oh, did you?
The main thing about this book is this is the only Hank Aaron book and possibly the only baseball book ever written that was not written chronologically. It was written by topic and not time. I treated each chapter as if it were a separate magazine article because I'm primarily a magazine writer. So I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I wanted to cover. I wanted it to be valuable for researchers. I'm a big Sabre guy. I've been in Sabre since 1981. I'm the vice chair of the New Jersey chapter of the Elysian Fields chapter. I wanted it to be easy to research. So stuff that didn't make it in, how about, I know, I can give you a good one. Frank Highland, who used to write for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, wrote something that Hank Aaron was not pleased with. And Hank Aaron took a box of strawberries that was near his locker and smashed it into Frank Highland's face. Totally out of character for Hank Aaron, a very low-key, humble, modest guy, never drew attention to himself.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know what? Why tarnish the image? You know, this was such an isolated incident. Why tarnish the image? I mean, Hank Aaron got all that hate mail, almost 1 million pieces of hate mail in 1973 alone. He had to have an FBI agent escort him around. He had to stay in separate accommodations on the road, not eat in the same restaurants as his teammates. That's what he encountered when there was segregation in '54 when he broke in. It was the same thing all over again, but for a different reason.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah. Honestly, I wonder if that was so many years of built-up tension that just in one moment, because he did deal with a lot. I mean,
yeah,
I can't imagine dealing with the stuff that Hank Aaron had to deal with.
Well, one thing that you should know is Jackie Robinson and Hank Aaron. Jackie Robinson came to give a talk in Mobile, Alabama when Hank was a teenager. He cut school to go hear Jackie speak and befriended him and befriended the other early black Dodgers like Roy Campanella, Don Newcomb. And he said later, those card games are like college for anybody else. He learned a lot on how to behave, how to handle segregation, prejudice, all that stuff.
Well, that's like, we actually talked to Jerry Eisenberg last week, who wrote a book about Larry Doby. And he said, it's not like Jackie Robinson came into the league and everybody was like, okay, great. Let's welcome.
Let's be nice to the next guy.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
And his own teammates didn't welcome him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't imagine Hank Aaron coming into the league and things were still all just hunky dory, that he was dealing with things with his teammates and opponents and things like that as well.
Spring training in Florida was not fun in 1954 for a black guy.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine that
for sure.
Yeah. Not
so fast forward to he's breaking the record, and the narrative is always pushed that how wonderful it was that a black man in the Deep South is being praised and you know, which is the narrative I prefer because it makes my feel goods feel good. But is there any additional context to that we should know and fans of baseball ought to know?
Hank Aaron did not want to go from Milwaukee back to Atlanta. He remembered what it was like living in Mobile and also integrating the Sally League. When he went to Jacksonville in 1953, he and Felix Mantilla and one other black player who didn't make the major leagues integrated an all-white league and put up with a lot of abuse. He remembered that vividly. He remembered hiding under the bed when the KKK marched down the street in Mobile when he was a boy. So he had a lot of bad memories. He did not want to go to the Deep South. But he was persuaded that Atlanta was a liberal bastion in a conservative state. And when he went down there and saw the dimensions and realized the altitude, he said, I'm going to become a pull hitter and I'm going to break some records along the way. And guess what? He did.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. I love it.
I love that all the stories about Hank Aaron present him as really self-aware, really, intelligent, not just about baseball, but about life. And he was deliberate, seemingly, in every single aspect. You hear the adage, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I feel like that kind of helps define Hank Aaron. What would you say to that idea? Well,
very definitely. In fact, when he moved to Atlanta, he met many civil rights icons, both Martin Luther King, Sr. and Jr., Ralph David Abernathy, Andrew Young. Jesse Jackson was always there. He's from Chicago, but he was always in Atlanta meeting with those guys. And Hank Aaron really became an outspoken advocate for civil rights.
What a platform.
Yeah. He's buried in the same cemetery as Martin Luther King Sr. Their graves are just not too far apart.
Wow.
That's fantastic. I had no idea.
I didn't know that. Mm-mm.
No clue.
I'm not sure if that in the book either. I may have.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a look and let you know.
And I wrote it real fast, 6 months.
That is
6 months? Because that's another question I always have. How much time did it take you to research and get this all together? Just 6 months? Was that from concept?
Start to finish. 6 months from start to finish. The last thing I did was interview Billy Aaron, his widow. It took me all that time to get her. Larry Aaron, Hank's oldest son, gave me her phone number, but didn't tell me they had to have a secret access code, which he never gave me. So I called him back. What's the access code? He said, I don't know. My number's programmed to go in. Mine was not. I finally called Jeff Idelson, my friend who used to be the Hall of Fame president. He put me in touch with Aaron's personal attorney, Alan Tenenbaum, and Alan put me in touch with Billy. That's how I did it.
Wow.
When there's a Willie, there's a maze.
Boy, you have been doing this a while.
I've been doing this a while. Even in my car, we have ways to find where you're going. I call it Millie because Millie Ways is the opposite of Willie Mays.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm gonna start using that.
So let's go back to the question you thought we were asking earlier because it was a good one. Okay. What was the most surprising bit of information? What did you not know when you started your research?
That's a great question, and I have a great answer for you. Are you sitting down?
Yeah.
Always.
First of all, Hank Aaron campaigned for 4 Democratic presidents, all of whom credited his campaigning for them with putting them in the White House. We start with Jimmy Carter, and then we have Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Bill Clinton. They all said the same thing about Hank Aaron. And he didn't just campaign in Georgia. He went to Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He was an ardent, outspoken, because these guys were civil rights guys. They were all advancing civil rights legislation, especially Barack Obama, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, right.
So he and Carter became very friendly early on. Carter was the governor of Georgia. There's a picture in the book of Carter and Hank Aaron, a close-up of Carter and Hank Aaron talking. The guy over Hank Aaron's right shoulder is me at age 25. I was interviewing Aaron when Carter came in the clubhouse and interrupted. This was after a game was rained out in September of 73. Had that rainout not occurred, Aaron might have broken the record in September of 73. That game was never made up. It was the last game of a series. There was no room in the schedule to make up the game.
Oh, okay. And it probably didn't have any effect on the standings or anything like that.
Only Hank Aaron standing. Only Hank Aaron standing with Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Boy,
so you've been writing about.
Well, one more thing about Carter. This is my favorite story in the entire book. It's in the chapter called Aftermath, which means after baseball. Mm-hmm. The Carters and the Aarons went on vacation together. Not so unusual. They went to Europe. A little unusual. They went skiing. Very unusual. Hank Aaron could not ski worth a damn. He was terrible. Carter was terrible. The two of them kept falling down and laughing at each other. That's the story. I never knew that. I thought it was great. I can picture the home run king who also played racquetball and tennis and swam and fished and played football when he was a kid. He couldn't ski? Give me a break.
Anybody
As a
who
kid-
has ever strapped on a waxed piece of wood on their feet understands how. Like, I remember the first time I ever got on a snowboard, I wasn't going to take a lesson, and I put one foot on that board. I was like, I need somebody to teach me how to do this. I'm going to kill myself. So I
could downhill ski, but I could not do cross country. No way.
no chance.
Yeah.
A lot of work for not that much fun.
Right.
Exactly.
I
And
grew
was
up in
told-
Utah. So we were skiing every kind of way there was to ski since I was like 6 years old. And even after all that time, the first run of every year was like, okay, hold on. I do know how to do this.
I always thought I would turn into Sonny Bono. You had to think about it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And then I got it.
In my book that I challenged my editor because there's a line in the book that says Hank Aaron chased Babe Ruth like Jean Valjean chased
Joe Bear.
I'm sorry, like Javier chased Jean Valjean. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the line. And my editor said, you got to mention that it's from Les Mis. And I said, if my readers aren't smart enough to know it's from Les Mis, then I've got another book.
Yeah.
It does not mention Les Mis, but it does use that line.
That's fantastic. That is probably the most complete work of fiction I've ever read. It's the most well-rounded, well-told story I think I've ever experienced.
That's why everybody should know it.
Yeah,
Plus,
I
the
agree with you.
movies, the shows, give me a break. Everybody knows Les Mis.
I agree. Come on, Brad. Get with the program. Read the book.
I'll get there.
I've been telling him to read the book for years. I'm like, this is so great.
If it had a score, we'd read it.
Yeah.
Of course, the musical does have a score.
Oh. Woo! We're just gonna sit back and let you sling it, Dan. Okay, so my next question is, what is it about baseball that lends itself to these romantic ideas that is so majestic and has all this? I don't even know what another word to use, but like it's there, that ethereal je ne sais quoi that's baseball just has.
I love the French, and I have a great answer for you. Baseball is the only sport that anybody could play. Size doesn't matter. Sex doesn't matter. Remember the Colorado Silver Bullets, an all-girls team? There have been female umpires. Now there's a female manager in the minor leagues. Women can do anything. The female broadcasters. The other day, the Oakland A's telecast had 2 women for the first time in baseball history. It was done by 2 women. So, as I said, sex doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter. You can be any size. Look at Mookie Betts. He's 5'9". Look at Ozzie Albies, Jose Altuve. They're little guys with big power. Altuve was an MVP and a 3-time batting champion. So that's why baseball is romantic, because anybody can do it.
Everybody but me. I'm just broken. That's all.
Well, you could probably get better than Matt Olson.
Yeah, anybody could right now.
He's coming around, but Acuna, forget it. What's wrong with him? 3
I have no
pickoffs in a
idea.
row?
That's crazy. Well, and Judge just pulled it out a little bit over the last few games. So I know he had limited time in spring training, but it's not common to see them all off to the slow side. What's about Goldie? What's going on with Paul?
Well, he's going to be a free agent, so he's pressing. But how about Julio Rodriguez? Mariners fan?
Yeah, Brad. What about
I was waiting for the landscapers to go, but I got to jump in on this. Julio has been so infuriating this year. I think he's pressing too, though, because he had a down year last year, and then now, like, I was at the game where he got picked off to end the game, and everybody left that stadium. There was just like a cloud of just frustration. And I hopped on X immediately when we got in the car, and I was like, what's going on? All this stuff, like nobody's talking to each other and everything. I was like, hopefully this is rock bottom and it flips around, and it has flipped. They played much better since then, but Julio still, like, he had a massive lead the other day, got picked off twice in the last week. He slid too hard into second, feet first, popped off the bag and got tagged out because they specifically told him they don't want him going head first into second anymore because they don't want him to get hurt. Like, but at what at what point do you sacrifice base runners, you know? So I think he'll figure it out. I think Acuna will figure it out. What do you think the Braves as a whole need to do to figure it out? Because they've been good, but they haven't been the Braves.
Hitting has been bad. The pitching has been very good, especially Chris Sale and Reynaldo Lopez. They've been fabulous. The two guys that got over the winter, they've been their best pitchers probably, and that's great because Spencer Strider is out now. So, and Max Fried is pitching real well because he's going to be a free agent too, and probably will go back to Santa Monica where he's from. That means L.A. Wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if he goes there. Yeah, but the Braves need to straighten out their hitters. And I said to Brian Sitker a couple of days ago when I was in New York, I said, Brian, usually when guys are slumping, the manager either benches them, changes the batting order, does something. And he said, well, these guys are used to playing every day. Well, he benched Acuna 2 days ago. So that should tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Way to go, Dan.
Riley is hurt, so we can't bench him. He's benched himself.
Yeah, he did.
But if these guys come back and start hitting the way they hit last year, Braves are going to leave the Phillies in the dust.
Yeah, they will.
You know that the Phillies have only played one team with a winning record this year?
No, I didn't look that closely.
Yeah, they've been playing. Yeah, they've been playing a lot.
The only team they played with a winning record so far this year, 6 weeks into the season.
Yeah, it's been I mean, this is the thing is like I always say, good teams beat the teams they're supposed to, and the Phillies have certainly done that. They've got one of the best records in baseball right now. But it is going to be interesting to see what happens when they get into the meat of their schedule and they start playing teams that are better, not necessarily than them, because I don't feel like we really know who they are, but get playing more of the Braves and especially the Dodgers. I mean, that's going to be a real test.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, they're a great team, but it's going to catch up.
Yeah, we actually talked about that last night, that last year at this time they looked like a 500 team. They were playing like a 500 team, but now they're, like I said, one of the best records in baseball. Do you think that'll really catch up to them, that they'll end up being close to a 500 team at some point this season like they were last year, or do you think they'll be able to ride this hot start?
They'll ride the hot start. They'll be over 500, but they're not going to win the division. The Braves had that locked up. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of the Braves, do you guys realize that the Milwaukee Braves were the only team in baseball history that never had a losing season? You can look it up.
What?
They existed for 13 years. They never had a losing season. Look it up.
How many of those years was Hank Aaron on that team?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah, I was going to say all of them.
I'm sorry. No, he missed one. He missed 1953.
Okay.
Which is Eddie Matthews' big year. But from 54 right through 65, they never had a losing season.
I mean, that adds up.
Yeah, but that's crazy, though.
There were 4 years in a row that could have been world champions. 56, they were one game behind the Brooklyn Dodgers. 57, they were the world champs. 58, they had a 3 games to 1 lead in the World Series. 59, they tied the Dodgers for first place, even though Red Shane got TB and out for the whole year. That made a huge difference.
Yeah.
They could have won 4 years in a row right there.
Wow.
I'm going to look it up right now. See how long they went consecutively with a winning record. Let's see, Milwaukee. Go ahead, Rick.
Brad, while you're doing that, I got a question about the foreword of your book was written by Dusty Baker.
Right, a good friend for many years.
Yeah, you guys are friends, and he makes that clear in his in the foreword, in the introduction of the book. But but his relationship with Hank was pivotal for him, enormous.
Definitely.
So it's apropos that there's this intersection between the three of you. Let me ask the question that I have never heard anybody ask, and how do I ask this? Does Hank Aaron's legacy live on not just in Dusty Baker, but how far does his legacy extend into the active player population right now?
It's a great question, and I have a great answer for you. Last summer at the Baseball Hall of Fame induction weekend, I talked to John Schuerholz, who's also in the Hall of Fame. And I said, John, you were general manager of the Braves. Weren't you Hank Aaron's boss? He said, nobody is the boss of Hank Aaron. He has that much respect. And at the Hall of Fame, the last induction that Hank attended, 2019, I was there. He got the loudest and longest ovation from the crowd standing ovation from the crowd of anybody on the Hall of Fame dais. There are a lot of former players there. And that says a lot. He finally got the respect he deserved. And when Bud Selig created the Hank Aaron Award in 1999, that was to almost compensate for the lack of MVPs he got. Aaron only won one MVP, never even finished second any other year. But the Hank Aaron Award goes to the best hitter in each league every year. Billy Aaron was there in Las Vegas last year when it was presented. It's a big deal in baseball.
Yeah,
by the way,
for
Acuna
sure.
won it. Acuna and Ohtani won it last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always thought that it was fitting. I can't believe he only won one MVP.
Yeah,
So I do
that's
know that for a while you could only win one, right? Like that's why Babe Ruth only has one. But do you know when they did away with that rule?
Well, in 1931, the MVP became official. There were other derivations or earlier derivations of the MVP before that.
Mm-hmm.
But it became official in 1931, and I don't recall that rule at all. So not with the writers. You can win as many. I mean, Barry Bonds won 7 of them,
right?
And there are other guys who won 3. Yogi Berra, for example, Roy Campanella.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Mays, by the way, only won 2 MVPs, and get this: Willie never led his league in RBIs. Never. I mean, people are always talking about Willie, Mickey, and the Duke, and I say, how about Hank? He was better than all 3 of those guys. Look at the numbers.
Yeah, that's true. You get a lot of other guys mentioned as top 5 players ever, and for some reason Hank Aaron isn't one of them. And I was listening to a radio show a few years ago, and they were saying it in jest, but they were talking about how Hank Aaron, they're just as a joke calling Hank Aaron a compiler because he played forever. And my thing is like, I don't care what kind of stats you put together to be able to play as long as Hank Aaron did. Holy cow. And then he was on the field that entire time.
Yeah. And he was the first guy with 3,000 hits and 500 home runs, which is amazing. And take his 755 home runs subtracted from his hit total, he's still in the 3,000 hit club.
Yeah.
And he ran 12 miles further around the bases than any major league player ever.
I love that. I love that number.
Yes.
I love it so
12
much.
miles.
Yeah.
I love when people calculate somebody's average home run trot, multiply it by their home runs. Like he's been running like X number of marathons or whatever, It's like he spent this many days running around the base. It's like I love that number so much. It is the best.
And Hank also said that he could not figure out why Jackie Robinson supported Richard Nixon and was a Republican. He couldn't figure that out at all for a leading civil rights advocate to do that.
Yeah. That always boggled my mind as well. I've read a bunch of Jackie's stuff, and when they released his was it the lost memoir or his personal journal finally got published a handful of years ago, there was a lot of that in there that I was surprised by.
So do you know why number 44? Do you know why Hank Aaron wore number 44?
Yes, I do. He wore number 5 as a rookie,
mm-hmm.
And he figured that a double-digit number would be luckier, and he'd have more success. So he asked Donald Davidson, who's a story all by himself, the vertically challenged traveling secretary of the Braves, who's only less than 5 feet tall. He asked him for another number, and Davidson said, you're too skinny. You can't carry around double digits like 44. Aaron was a wiry guy. Yeah. I mean, later on, he was filled out to be 6 feet tall and 180 pounds. He was thinner when he first came up. And Davidson said, you can't do that. Aaron insisted, so he gave him 44, and he matched his uniform number and home runs 4 times. So he never had more than 47. And this brings up a real good comparison with Barry Bonds. The year Barry hit 73 was the only time in his career he had as many as 50 in a season. So as Yogi Berra would say, something's not kosher in the state of Denmark.
That's right.
That's one. And I was actually thinking about that too. How do you feel about Barry Bonds having broken the record?
I feel it's a disgrace to baseball, and he'll never get in the Hall of Fame, and I'm glad. And the same goes for McGuire and Palmeiro and Sosa. Roger Clemens, I'm not sure about Roger Clemens, because when I did my book, The 300 Club, I interviewed Roger at length, and I promised his agent at the start that I would not mention anything about steroids. And I didn't, but he brought it up. And he said, I want to make something clear. I never took performance-enhancing substances. He talked about it at length. He claimed he was innocent. And I'm almost inclined to agree with him because when Roger was an active player, he insisted, it was in his contract, that his teammates were not allowed to smoke on the team bus going from the hotel to the ballpark on the road. At times, because they didn't like Roger, the whole team would have one bus and Roger would have another one. It was in his contract.
Wow.
If he was that worried about tobacco smoke, he's not going to take steroids or anything else.
Yeah.
However, on the other hand, to be devil's advocate, when your head gets bigger and your numbers get better as you get older, it's not right.
Well,
that's what gets me every time.
I always go back to the conversations, like the recorded conversation, things like that. I'm like, that seems awfully shady to me. Like a lot of the conversation surrounding it was very, very smoky, right?
Oh yeah,
like
Palmeiro
too
in
smoky,
Congress, right? Remember Palmeiro waving his finger in Congress?
Yeah,
of course, it was not the same finger that I wave at other drivers, you know.
The old driver salute,
the Idaho wave.
We're ordering one hot dog at the game, you know.
So I do want to stick on Barry Bonds for just a minute though, because Brig did a really deep dive on Bonds statistically last year for a bit. We were doing. Mm-hmm. Do you think he would have been a Hall of Famer before everything?
Definitely.
Allegedly went down.
Oh yeah.
Even though he couldn't throw out Sid Bream, yes, he would have been a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and that's the way we feel too. Is it's mind-boggling to see a guy who had such promise in a career to. I mean, granted, he went on to do what he did, right? Mm-hmm. But man, he could have been a well-rounded player almost his entire career and done even more.
Yeah, more.
Yeah. And
I say more.
Yeah, and Clemens too. All of them.
Yeah.
You know, Sammy Sosa is the only guy who had 60 home runs 3 times.
And I feel like that's about all he did too. Like over the course of his career, like to say only 3 times, right? Like that's a massive accomplishment. But at the same time, though, like if you look at his numbers, like yes,
he could run though.
He could run. He could run, but he didn't. I don't feel like he stole the bases he could have, because like I've actually got his numbers right here. In 1998, he stole 18, and then he never stole 10 again after that.
Yeah.
You know that he didn't take advantage of his speed because he didn't really have to, because he's hitting a bunch of home runs.
Right.
Sure.
Aaron too. When Aaron did his 30-30 year, he was only the 3rd guy in baseball history that did it at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's miraculous about Barry Bonds having 5 30-30 years. That was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, those 30 home runs make a lot of sense under those that context. But a guy that big moving that fast, that's nuts.
Well, he wasn't that big then. He
wasn't that big then.
He was small.
Well, remember, he was wiry when he came up, and then he felt.
Well, yeah. Right.
Look at the baseball cards, different pictures that were taken.
Yeah.
When he spent a year as a hitting coach for the Marlins, he was thin again. He was campaigning for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw him. They did the Willie Mays Day. What was it? A handful of months ago in San Francisco, and he's standing there next to the mayor, and he looks like a normal sized human. Yeah. That Willie Mays Day is a hot ticket for us, though, because it felt like they said, okay, we're going to do it tomorrow. And then they did it as a pat on the head for a campaign run thing, and then nobody cared and nobody did anything about it again. It was an insult. It was disrespectful.
Oh, well, the good thing about Willie Mays is his birthday, which is also my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a friend who was born on February 5th, Hank Aaron's birthday, and I tried to trade my birthday for his, but it didn't work.
Swapping birthdays like baseball cards.
It didn't take.
No.
I share a birthday with Dave Sims, one of the Mariners play-by-play guys.
Oh yeah, good guy.
Yeah. I there's a lot of people who give him guff for his play-by-play, but I love listening to that dude. Like, he's one of my favorites.
Okay, so I have another hot take question. In the wake of this Shohei Ohtani scandal and the betting, and there have 2 questions. One is, where there's smoke, there's fire. It's kind of how we all feel. Do you want to comment on this as far as Ohtani's involvement / culpability, or what? Just your opinion.
I'm not going to say that he's guilty. However, he's suspicious, because how can somebody's really close to you like that steal $16 million to cover up a gambling debt, it's really not right. And you have to think, did Ohtani pay this guy to take the fall? That's my biggest question. MLB is still investigating. The feds are still investigating. If he is found to have bet on baseball, he will be suspended for life. Goodbye, $700 million.
Yeah.
It's possible. Baseball does not want that to happen. He's kind of like the golden child of baseball these days.
For sure.
He's on his way to his second MVP. He'll join Frank Robinson as the only guys to win it in both leagues.
Yep.
But it is possible he will be banned for life.
Yeah, and that would be terrible. I just feel like it'd be terrible for baseball. But so my wife has been like super invested in this. Like she's like, I just can't believe it. She's into baseball, but not like this, right?
Right.
And one of the things she pointed out was that comedian Dane Cook, his brother stole like everything from him. And he had no idea until one day he checked his bank account and there was nothing there. You know, so she points that out and she's like, I could see it happening. It makes perfect sense to me that something like that would happen, that with that much money, you have so many other people managing your money and things like that, that like, it's never an issue to go swipe your card when you have that much money in the bank. Right. So
yeah,
he doesn't check, doesn't pay attention. He's not like Floyd Mayweather where he's over there counting the zeros.
Yeah. Floyd.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Ohtani never talked to begin with. He doesn't speak the language well. He never spoke to the media. And now he really never speaks to the media. And he doesn't want to hang himself. So
of course.
I hope he has a good interpreter now.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I said, because a lot of people were wanting to give him a hard time about speaking through his interpreter when he read that statement. I was like, I speak just enough Spanish to get by. Like I can order at a Mexican restaurant comfortably, and that's about it. Like I would not want to try to defend myself in Spanish. I would definitely want to have an interpreter who's going through and like, I don't care that he speaks a little bit of English to his teammates every day. I still wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Bartolo Colon speaks perfect English, but still uses an interpreter.
Yeah.
Ichiro sometimes does too. And that guy speaks English. I listened to him give his Mariners Hall of Fame induction speech, and it was really great.
Fine. Yeah.
But another guy who uses interpreter from time to time.
He could be unanimous selection to the Hall of Fame next year.
He should be.
No
question.
Speaking of that, so should Hank Aaron. 9 voters left them completely off their 10-member ballots. 9 voters.
Why do they do that? Why do they believe?
Well, there are certain guys that believe nobody should get in on the first ballot, but it's racism. You know, why did Hank Aaron not start 8 All-Star games? He was elected an All-Star 25 times, a major league record. 8 times he didn't start the game. Give me a break.
Yeah,
I think somebody named Roberto Clemente had something to do with it, or Frank Robinson, or some lesser light.
So, but why do guys like Griffey missed by 1? Why did Griffey miss by 1?
Oh, Jeter missed by 1, not Griffey.
Yeah. Well, they both did.
I don't think that's accurate. I don't mean.
No, I think Griffey was.
Jeter was the only one who missed by as few as 1 vote. Check it out.
But why? Why does it happen? Like, what's the? Is it so? We think it's curmudgeon. There's somebody out there who says, like you said, first time you don't get in, or I want to be the one guy who doesn't.
Well, nowadays, or since Pete Rose, since that situation, some guys don't vote at all because they're protesting Pete Rose not being included on the ballot. So there was a protest. When Tom Seaver came up, he missed by 3 votes, 3 blank ballots in protest of Pete Rose. That's why Seaver was not unanimous. So, but it really doesn't matter, because once you're in the Hall of Fame, you're in the Hall of Fame. You're a teammate of all the other guys in the Hall of Fame. Nobody asked David Ortiz, how do you feel about getting 77% of the vote? He's in the Hall of Fame. So what? Yeah. Some guys make it by 1 or 2 votes. Jim Cott made it by 1 vote. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
You're right. Griffey missed by 3. He missed by 3.
There you go.
You're right.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, we did. Setting us straight. We appreciate it.
So, Dan, the new writers coming up, do you have an idea? This is the sense among the established writers that the newer members of the voting community, do they have different sensibilities than this more seasoned writers about steroids and things like that?
Some do, but I worry that they don't have a good idea of baseball history. because even the ball players don't know baseball history. A lot of teams, the Dodgers were the first one to have a historian. A lot of teams have followed suit and hired a historian just so people know baseball history. There was a time before the Dodgers hired this guy, team players on the Dodgers did not ever hear of Jackie Robinson. How is this possible? So they hired a team historian, and now everybody knows who Jackie Robinson is, not only in the Dodgers, but throughout baseball. But I wonder how many Pirates have heard of Roberto Clemente. You know?
You'd think it would be criminal to have not.
It would. How many Brewers never heard of Hank Aaron? He was only there for 2 years. So, you got to know the history of whatever business you're in. If you're a lawyer or a doctor, it really doesn't matter. Know the history of the profession.
Yep.
So do you feel like that extends to the fans as well? Like, I know that here in Phoenix, the Diamondbacks have a pretty cool museum out in center field. Do you think everybody should go that route and have a museum there so that they can educate the fans as well?
Yeah, it's required. They should see the museum before they jump in that pool.
Yeah, they should.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Well, the museum's free.
They should jump in the pool.
The museum's free. The pool is not cheap. I'll tell you that.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
We looked into the pool. I had a buddy who was like obsessed with it when we went. He's like, we got to go. We got to get down there. And I was like, bro, we can't afford that.
It wasn't me.
Amazing.
That wasn't me. I wasn't.
No,
I would do something like that, but that wasn't me.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I did the Dodger Stadium tour, and that was better than the game. I loved it. And it was cheaper than a game ticket.
Yeah. I did Yankee Stadium for the first time. I did the tour as well, and it was just as good as the game, if not better.
Yeah, I agree.
So Dan, Brad is flying out here tomorrow, and we will be at Truist on Monday.
Oh, great.
And one of the things I can't wait to show him is all the bats stacked up. That 755. Like you walk past it, and you just can't but stop and just gawk at this, because it's a piece of art. It's a piece of history. It's representative of so much. And that's one of the things I'm so excited to show Brad. We're just going to go stare at it.
You also need to go to the Atlanta History Center. They just opened a Hank Aaron exhibit. It's going to be there through the All-Star game in 2025, which is going to be in Atlanta. Brian Snitker told me he was at the opening luncheon for that. And he said it was the only banquet he's ever been to. He did not want to leave. He said there were so many great stories about Hank Aaron and about the Milwaukee Braves and the Atlanta Braves. Brian loved it. So go see it. I'm going to come down there in June and see it. I haven't seen it either, but I heard great things about it.
Where is it?
It's at the Atlanta History Center, which is in Buckhead, which is a very upscale section of town. It's very nice there.
Yeah. Buckhead's wonderful. Yeah.
Cool. We'll make the stop. That's awesome.
Yeah, we will, because it's the day game, so we'll have time.
Good.
Yeah.
I love day games.
Who are they
Well,
playing?
Dan,
Who are they playing?
The Padres.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. We're big fans of day games. We cannot wait. It's going to be my first time actually in Atlanta. Last time I was in Atlanta, I landed, got a car, drove to Augusta, and that's all I've ever seen of Atlanta in my entire life.
Yeah.
You got to go to the Varsity, the world's largest drive-in, and have a slaw dog.
A slaw dog. Oh, man. There's so much to do out here.
When I was there, Andrew Young sat at the next table.
Nice.
World's largest drive-in. I didn't know that was the world's largest
drive-in. Nipsey Russell was discovered there. He was on roller skates serving cars.
What?
It's a drive-in fast food place. And it's near Georgia Tech, very close to Georgia Tech. All the college kids go there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a cool campus.
Yeah.
Dan, where can people find your book?
Amazon.com is a good place to start. You'll save a few bucks too. Probably Barnes & Noble, any other bookstore should have it. If they don't, order it. Tell them they got a whole bunch because we've got Father's Day coming up.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Is there a way that they can buy it directly from you so that you get all the money for it?
If they come to some of my signings, they can. I'm signing in Cooperstown twice. June 20th, I'll be at the Authors Series in the Bullpen Theater at 1 o'clock on June 20th. And I'll be in front of Willis Money Books on induction weekend on July 20th. Exactly 1 month later, I'll be on the street signing books.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
And
I have other signings lined up too, but they're mostly in northern New Jersey or New York or whatever.
Okay. And is there a list of where those signings are that we can point people to?
On my Facebook page, which is, let's see, it's facebook.com/D Schlossberg #1. Facebook.com/D Schlossberg #1.
Okay. We will go snag that, and then we will include the link so people can come find you.
Okay.
Cool.
That'd be great.
Dan, we appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on.
Man.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad you got the book, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will.
I've been so far. Baseball family, thank you so much for joining us this week with our interview with Dan Schlossberg. He is, like I said, a fellow IBWAA member, and we were very excited to have him on. That's something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. We had him, and it was fantastic. He was a lot of fun. Set us straight on a couple things. Brig and I don't have the memory that he has, right? Like, he has the old-timey baseball memory where he remembers every single thing, and we remember most of things most of the time. I'm hoping that I will get there and it will be better. Like the whole Griffey with the Hall of Fame thing. It felt like one. At the time, it was the highest overall vote, right? But anyway, I digress. But baseball family, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review everywhere that you can. YouTube is the best place to do that. It's the best place to find us overall. We know not everybody has a chance to sit down and listen to or watch an entire hour-long or hour-plus interview, an episode. So what we'll do, every single day, we're going to drop the different clips and different news segments on YouTube. So a little bit easier to consume, bite-sized clips that you can sit down and watch a little bit of here and there. So like, subscribe, rate, and review there when you can. Share the show with your friends. Tell your friends about us if you haven't already. Spread the love. We're looking to grow this thing into something more. And speaking of which, you can help us do that by joining us on Patreon, becoming our rooters. Head over to patreon.com and search Baseball Together, or click the link down in the description and head over to Patreon. We have 5 tiers of support: $1, $5, $10, $15, and a whopping $500 a month. Everybody gets a sticker in the bullpen cut of the show, which is the uncut, unedited version. So you get the entire conversation with Dan Schlossberg with the bullpen cut, and also my mess ups as I was trying to do this by myself, because it happens every single time. Every time. So anyway, baseball family, again, thank you so much for joining me this week. We will catch you Thursday night.